Yeah, I mean, we'd start out with talking about those laws of combat, which are basically when Jocko took over after he comes back from Ramadi as the task unit commander, he is then put in charge of the training, the sustainment training for all the West Coast SEAL teams. And as he's running the training, he's seen some task units do good. He's seen other task units just do awful. And he's like, I've got to come up with a framework that these guys can apply that's going to work. So he goes back to his room that night and he comes up with the laws of combat. And it's really simple. There's four of them. It's cover and move, simple, prioritize and execute, and decentralized command. Those are the four laws. And we know that they apply well to the battlefield. What he didn't know and discovered later was they apply everywhere. They apply everywhere. So cover and move, the first law of combat, that's about teamwork. That's about putting the mission first and working with all the other departments and other organizations that you're working with to accomplish that mission, right? Because if, say you're in manufacturing and you're on the line doing the manufacturing, well, if the salespeople aren't doing a good job, who pays the price for that? Everybody pays the price. And flip that around, if you're not doing a good job on the manufacturing floor, that's affecting everybody at that company. If you're a first responder and the dispatchers aren't doing their job, that's affecting the whole system. So you've got to work together. And we know that in all these, like in a team or whatever, there are these silos developed. And you played in the NFL. I'm sure that between offense and defense and the different teams, there are these different silos that develop and maybe there's friction points and antagonisms. But if you look at it like, hey, how can we do the best to cover and move for each other? How can we do the best to support each other and put the overall goal of the team or the company or my fire department first, or my family, then we're all going to win. Right. And so that involves checking your ego and looking to see where you can help other folks so they can win too, because it's going to come back to you, because when the team wins, everybody wins. Right. And, how does this apply to your family? We all know, and you've experienced this, where you'll get to a point with your kids, and you got to this with your parents, where at some point you just shut them off. Like they're telling you great stuff, but they're just like whap, whap, whap. You're not hearing it. Whereas there are probably like a school teacher or a coach or an uncle or an aunt or maybe a scout leader that's saying the same stuff to your kids, but they're listening to them because it's just coming from a different angle. So you want to basically cover and move and have a teamwork with everybody around you to help raise those kids. I mean, and down to like even between you and your spouse. There are times where you've got to pick up some slack, and maybe you're doing some of her chores for her in order just to help everything get done. So that's the first law of combat. Second law of combat is simple. And that means like, hey, we got to look at the overall mission and goal and say, what is it? What's the overall mission of goal of what we're trying to do, and what's the way to communicate that in the simplest terms necessary? Like, what does winning look like? And for football on the offensive side, that means that you're going to get that football across the end zone. But for the defense, it's different, right? They're trying to stop the other team from doing it and hopefully push it back as far as they can so they can get it. So when everybody knows, hey, that's what our overall end state or our goal is, then they can problem solve at their level. Third law of combat is prioritize and execute. And this seems ridiculously like so simple. Why would you even bring it up? But it's simple, but it isn't easy. You need to be able to look at everything that you've got going on and say, what is the number one priority, and deal with that. And in order to do that, you need to detach from the details sometimes, and you got to detach from emotion other times. Like if I'm in a firefight and my buddy gets shot, emotionally, I want to stop what I'm doing and start applying medical treatment to him. But that's not my priority in a firefight. My priority is to finish the firefight. Because if I don't finish the firefight and suppress enemy fire, then I could have 7 more buddies that I'm going to have to treat if I stop doing that. Now, the medic, his priority is to get over to apply medical stuff, but it's an internal struggle. And this can happen all the time. And it's super difficult for leaders where you can get sucked into details, especially when you promote it up through a job and you know the job of everybody beneath you real well. It's really difficult for you to not get sucked into those details and then you lose sight of the big picture, and that's your job. And so, like, on the battlefield, the as a SEAL leader, that detail that you can get sucked into is the front sight on your weapon, right? If I'm out there and I'm a leader in a SEAL platoon, there are absolutely times when I'm probably going to have to shoot my gun. But when I'm shooting my gun, my peripheral vision is completely gone. All I'm focused on is this, this little soda straw of stuff. And there's a lot going on in the battlefield. And I need to keep in mind that my actual weapon system is the other 17 SEALs that are out there fighting. And so I need to be up and looking around and take a step back and be able to get that 30,000 foot view to say, hey, we're taking fire from over there. Maybe we needing to move this building. Hey, is our medevac support here? Do I have all the assets that I need right now to support what we got going on? And that kind of stuff. So, but I tell you, I like to shoot. I was a sniper. And so I can get sucked into that front sight and completely lose track of time and what's going on. And then I've at that point, I've lost it. So I'm not saying that you need to be at the 30,000 foot view all the time, but you need to be able to cycle back and forth, because there are absolutely times on the battlefield where I need to be on my weapon and shooting it. I just need to know it's not my priority to back up. So prioritize and execute. From a family level, maybe your kid's struggling in school. And then if that's the case, then you need to look at any sports that they might be in and say, hey, is this actually a priority for us right now? Or is the kid getting good grades a bigger priority? Weigh that out and then focus your efforts where they need to be focused based on what you think the priority is. I mean, there are conditions where the kid's athletic ability, it may be that, like, hey, we're not going to stop the sport because this is going to be your ticket to higher education, and we're going to get you a stinking couple tutors if that's what we need to do to get your grades up to the level where you can continue playing, right? So all that needs to be balanced out, but in order to do it, you need to be able to detach and look back and look at all the priorities that are going on. When I didn't cover on simple where that applies to the family, but it does. For Iris and I, my wife, about a year ago, we were like, hey, what does winning look like for us as parents? And we decided that winning looks like that we're raising kind, confident, competent adults. And so now that we both have agreed on that as parents, we can move forward. And then as we problem solve and we run into different parenting challenges, we're like, well, I'm trying to raise a competent adult. So for instance, my daughter climbed up an apple tree last year and then starts crying that she can't get down. And I would just love to come be her white knight and rescue her. But then that begs the question, am I making a competent adult by rescuing my child? The answer is no. So, but what I can do is I can go over to the apple tree and coach her down so she can make it over that obstacle on her own. Now I'm making I'm on the road to making a competent adult that way. And I'm thinking that because we came up with what our simple was for parenting. What does winning look like? And then the final law of combat is the fourth law is decentralized command. And this is a situation where everybody is leading. So it takes the first 3 laws of combat overlaid with each other so that, you've got teamwork going on within your organization. Everyone understand what's the overall mission or goal is, and they understand what winning looks like. And then they're going, okay, we know, and then they're able to prioritize and execute and problem solve at their level. So even if they're not leading anybody but themselves, they know what the goal is and they can figure things out and get them done. And so as a leader, you're constantly pushing to this point where you're trying to work yourself out of a job. Now, obviously, as a leader, there are decisions that have to come to your level. And there really shouldn't be that many decisions. You should be pushing as much down to your people as possible. In the SEAL teams, we had what's called the Commander's Critical Information Requirements, CCIRs. And there weren't many of them. There was 4, right? It was like, hey, if someone's killed or wounded in the battlefield, as soon as you finish that firefight and you communicate that back up the chain of command, you're going to do it. And if the commanding officer is asleep, we're going to wake him up if one of these 4 things happen. So somebody's killed or wounded. The second thing was, hey, if there are any civilian casualties or allegations of civilian casualties, we're letting the CO know at our first available time. And then the third one was any press involvement. If there's any press involvement, good or bad, first opportunity, we're letting the commanding officer know, and he's getting woken up for it. And the last one was, if anyone back in the States, so any of our dependents from our, of our family members that are back there, if they're in the hospital or otherwise laid up, as soon as we can let the CO know, we're letting him know for that information. Everything else, we've got his guidance. He told us what winning looks like. He told us, hey, here's the parameters that you're working under. And you've got to do that for decentralized command to work. Everyone needs to understand what their roles and responsibilities are and what winning looks like. And then they can operate inside that stuff. And then they know this is what we push up. This is what we push up. Hey, boss, there was a reporter out in the field today. He was taking some pictures here, how we think it went. And let them know. And then all the other stuff, we just tell them at regularly scheduled meetings. So decentralized command is why the Marines were able to clear the Japanese who were entrenched on every island in the Pacific and waiting for them. Because they would come up with a major plan, and as soon as it started and things changed, they adapted with it. And it was pushed all the way down to that Marine Corps private carrying a rifle on how he was going to take out that next Japanese pillbox, whether he was going to do a frontal assault or maybe he was going to sneak around and throw a grenade through the side. And that is so powerful. And it's the best way for any organization to operate because they can make decisions really fast. If everyone's coming to me as a leader to make decisions, it slows the hell out of the process, and then it boxes the process into, hey, we're just going to solve the problems based on how Jason thinks about it, as opposed to everybody else's problem solving. And now I'm going to get some real innovation going on because I've got new people looking at the problem. And as long as they're operating inside the parameters that we've given them, as long as it's legal, ethical, and safe, they're going to come up with new ways to get things done, which is amazing. So those are the 4 laws of combat.